We're going to go through the first section, 12.1, working with our matrices. The first section is adding and subtracting. I'm going to go through with you how to solve these with using a graphing calculator and without using a graphing calculator. So for problem number 1, it's an addition problem. Both of the matrices are 2 by 2s, so we can go ahead and add them. They are not both the same dimensions, and you cannot add or subtract them. So keep that in mind. So when we're adding and subtracting, we just want to take each of the same corresponding elements and go ahead and add them. So 2 plus negative 4, we add those and we get negative 2. 4 plus negative 1, we get 3. 5 plus 3, we get 8. And negative 7 plus 5, we get negative 2. So that would be our answer. Now this next one, it's a subtraction problem. So instead of adding each element, we would go ahead and subtract each element. So if we do that, 5 minus 1 is 4. 3 minus 7 is negative 4. 8 minus 4 is 4. And 2 minus negative 3. Notice we have two negatives back to back, so we'd go ahead and add. So 2 plus 3, we get 5. Now, both of those are the answers for 1 and 2. I want you to show you now, using the graphing calculator, how we could go ahead and add them. So if we go to second matrix, and matrix is this fourth button down, so second matrix, we first need to type in, go to edit, type in the two matrices. So click enter, and it's a 2 by 2. So 2, 4, 5, negative 7. Click enter after each time, and then we're going to go to second matrix, go over to edit again, but we're going to go to matrix B now. We have to type in the other matrix. So again, it's a 2 by 2. We're typing in each number. After each number, I'm clicking enter to get to the next. So then I'm going to go to graph clear. Then I'm going to go to second matrix. And the two matrices that I used is matrix A and the matrix B. So I'm going to click on matrix A, click enter, and then plus, and then I'm going to go to matrix B and add matrix B to it. And then notice they'll go ahead and add them for me. And I get that same exact answer. So let's try this again. We do number 2. We need to go to second matrix, retype in the matrices. I always just use A and B so I don't forget which ones to use. So then it's a 2 by 2 again. Make sure if you plan on using the calculator that after you type in each matrix, check to make sure that you typed it in correctly. Okay, once we get this second one typed in, to go to graph clear, then second matrix, have the first one highlighted, click enter, and then we're subtracting this one, so minus, and then have the second one, matrix B, highlighted. Then click enter, and then you can see we get the second answer. Now we're going to go down to the next section. For this section, it wants us to go ahead and solve for matrix X. So they want to know this matrix plus what matrix is going to give us this matrix. So I want you to think of this just like solving an equation. So we want to get the X by itself. So to get the X by itself, we would subtract this matrix over. Okay, then from here, those would just cancel out. So we have X equals this matrix minus this matrix. And so we're going to go through and do it just like this subtraction problem up here. We're going to subtract the corresponding elements. So for minus 7, we get negative 3. 5 minus negative 1, the two negatives back to back would cancel out to be positive. So 5 plus 1 gives me 6. 8 minus 3 gives me 5. 2 minus 5 gives me negative 3. And then that's going to be my answer. Now if I wanted to check my work, I could go plug this matrix right back into here. And if I go ahead and add these two matrices, it should give me this sum. So if I add 7 plus negative 3, notice 7 plus negative 3 is 4. Or negative 1 plus 6 gives me 5. We're just adding those corresponding elements. Okay, now for this next one, I can do it a couple ways. that I could add this x over here to the right-hand side and then subtract this matrix over here. So if I do so, I add the x over here, I subtract this matrix over here. Then those are going to cancel out. So I'm going to have x, when I add that over here to the right-hand side, equals, and then I'm subtracting these two matrices. So 2 minus -5. So the two negatives cancel out, so I get 7. 7 minus 1, I get 6. 9 minus 3 is 6. -3 minus 4 is -7. And then that would be my answer. Another way that I could have done this one, I could have subtracted this matrix over, or I could have went ahead and subtracted this matrix over and then divided each number by -1. Alrighty, for this, the bottom ones, we're going to go ahead and add them just like what we did above. Alright, now there's some on the back side that are a little bit different, so I want to take a look at them. So for this one, it says find the value of each of the variables. So for number 14, we want to solve for x, y, and z. So we're going to take and set up an equation for each of the corresponding elements to help us solve for the variables. So notice that the x is in the upper right-hand corner, so we're going to take each of the upper right-hand corners and make an equation. So 4 plus -5 equals x. Okay, so then we get 4 plus -5 is -1 equals our x. So then we're going to go through and solve for our y. So our y is in the lower left-hand corner, so we're going to make an equation setting the lower left-hand corners all equal to one another. So we get y then equals 6. And then for our z, it's in the lower right-hand corner, so we set those all equal to one another. So 6 plus -3 equals our z. So z equals 3. Okay, and you're going to do that with each of the corresponding elements. Okay, so if we jump down to number 16, let's do the corresponding location. So our x is in the upper left-hand corner, so we set those equal to one another. So we have -8 equals 5x plus 2, and then we go ahead and solve for the x. Okay, and then for our y, it's in the upper right-hand corner, so we make that equation. So we have -5 equals 2 minus y. So we get -y equals -7, so y equals +7. And then we have to solve for z. So z is in the middle on the bottom, so we set both of them equal to one another. And we have our answer. And if we wanted to check our work, again, we're just solving equations. So if we plug them back in, then they should simplify. So for example, -4, if I plug that back in for my z, 2 times -4 is -8, plus 1 is -7. So -7 would be both in that same spot. Thank you, and hopefully this video helped with adding and subtracting. Make sure you can do it by hand or using the calculator.